Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we examine the complex relationship between our nation's economy and the environment. In Alaska, we learn how the snow crab population has bounced back following a 2-year pause on fishing. And in New York, we learn how the fashion industry is making efforts to reduce and reuse discarded fabrics. But we begin in California, where more than 100,000 Los Angeles homeowners' insurance policies were dropped before the devastating wildfires in January. Elizabeth Cook reports on the costly prospect of rebuilding that many LA families are now facing.
The fires that tore through Altadena turned the family home of Jeff and Jennifer Cohen from this to this.
I think there's some walls up. It seems like the second floor collapsed onto the first, but I couldn't tell you if there's anything salvageable.
Getting money to rebuild will take time, a long time. The Cohens have found temporary housing, but are among the 100,000 plus Los Angeles homeowners whose insurance had been dropped before the latest wildfires.
Did they give a reason why?
It's the fire hazard, it's the fire danger. You know, we were in an area that they couldn't provide insurance to any longer.
As victims like the Cohens come to grips with a devastating loss, analysts predict insurers could pay out more than $20 billion just from this wildfire disaster alone.
The kind of risk has been changing very quickly.
University of California Associate Professor Francis Moore studies the economics of climate change.
Any kind of healthy kind of financial risk management, we really want the insurers to have an accurate picture of what that risk is.
Nationwide, the insurance industry already faces tens of billions of dollars in losses from natural disasters.
So this icon is a simulated ignition point.
Rob Newbold of the company Verisk says one way to financially plan for those disasters could include computer-generated catastrophic models.
How does the climate conditions in terms of temperature and weather, taken together with where the properties are, with infrastructure in terms of things like putting the fires out, prevalence of local fire stations, prevalence of local fire breaks, all of these come together to run simulations of what could happen over the next 1 year of activity.
Verisk already offers to insurers around the country models covering everything from wildfires to tornadoes to hurricanes.
We have this deeper red color over in and around Beverly Hills. That indicates there's greater loss potential based both on the ignition point, the spread rate, the intensity of the fire, as well as the value of the exposures within that zip code. The insurance company can understand this loss potential and have sufficient money on hand to pay claims.
Under an old law to protect consumers, California regulators prohibited using models like these to help set rates. But the state is lifting that ban. Verisk is the first company to submit its models for approval.
What have you done? What has this experience been like trying to find new insurance?
So that was quite an ordeal.
The Cohens eventually found coverage, but only through a government-sponsored pool, and it's at a much higher cost than what they paid. But even that pool may not have enough money to cover the expected Los Angeles fire damage claims.
Will you rebuild in California?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know.
We're just mourning the loss of all, the things that are irreplaceable.
Precious memories were in that home.
Those are the irreplaceable things.
Today, they live in limbo after the fires burned their home of 23 years to the ground.
We continue exploring the fallout from Los Angeles' historic wildfires earlier this year. Strong winds, extremely dry conditions, and suburban sprawl helped amplify the impact of the fires. Tom Hansen brings us a deeper dive into what the January disaster says about future threats.
Can I get out of here?
It's an all too familiar scene by now. People running for their lives from unrelenting flames.
We never really been evacuated, but we figured it was going to just kind of blow over. It blew over all right.
Crystal Scott grew up playing in the picturesque San Gabriel Mountains. Her childhood home at their base was one of thousands destroyed in the Eaton fire.
We're very devastated because our families worked hard to put us here.
And while it's a realization of a dream, it's also highly problematic, as urban sprawl has crept into previously wild areas.
I think a lot of it has to do with global warming. We did once upon a time have 4 seasons, and all that stopped.
These neighborhoods tucked in the foothills of Los Angeles could have survived this weather whiplash. But with climate change, the rainy seasons are more intense, the dry seasons last longer. In fact, the last time Los Angeles saw even an inch of rain was around Easter of last year. UCLA professor Stephanie Pincel points to a history of intense fires in the West.
Ma'am, you have to evacuate.
Yeah, we are.
3 years ago, the Marshall Fire near Denver snaked down a hill, growing from a grass fire into the most destructive in Colorado's history, incinerating more than 1,000 suburban homes. And in 2013, the Yarnell Hill Fire in Arizona killed 19 elite firefighters who were trying to protect homes just down the mountain.
We're still thinking that as humans, we can overpower nature. Well, we're not quite that powerful.
These fires all have one thing in common. They take place at the wildland-urban interface, a technical term for where humans have overstepped into nature. A third of all American homes exist in this type of space. Is there anybody who can be held accountable?
Suburban sprawl? How about that?
Is this in any way a winnable firefight?
No. Why would we even think that way? Winning means we're still trying to dominate natural patterns. We cannot win over nature ultimately.
Do you think that if this can happen here, it can happen anywhere?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Which begs the ultimate question of if these communities can rise from the ashes and how to rebuild when the flames are bound to come back.
Coming up, how fresher seafood catches can be a benefit to both restaurants and the ocean. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. A fleet of fishers in New York is creating a sustainable future for themselves and their customers. The group known as DrDish is applying the popular farm-to-table philosophy to the ocean. Nancy Chin hops aboard one of their boats to learn about their mission to serve up the freshest fish while protecting the open waters.
Just after sunrise in Montauk, New York's easternmost point, a wave of change is on the horizon. A fleet of fishers across 100 boats banding together to reshape how we see seafood. Casey Boyle heads the group known as DrDish.
We hear all the time about farm to table. This is boat to table.
It's really kind of the last aspect of the farm to table movement that's been omitted. So there's a lot of traceability that you can find with vegetables or various meat or dairy products these days, but seafood, oftentimes, it's a giant question mark.
Boyle's team is working to change that in an effort to fix what they say is an imbalance in the supply chain that leads to overfishing. While the U.S. exports the majority of the seafood it produces, it imports at least 85% of what it consumes. A piece of fish travels on average 5,000 miles before ending up on a plate, according to DrDish. And their aim is to deliver the catch straight from the water to the kitchens of more than 100 restaurants in the New York area within 24 hours, with a plate full of information too, including where it was caught and when. That's what got fisher Amanda Jones on board.
The power in that is that the fish was swimming the same day.
And it helps sustain the waters for future fish too.
Yeah, fishermen respect the ocean more than anybody because they've been doing it for generations and generations, and they want their kids and grandkids to continue to do it.
A key motivator in DrDish's founding, as more fishers leave the industry.
You're seeing a lot of people whose families have been doing this for generations giving up their craft.
Every year we're losing more and more of our fleet due to cost. It's more expensive to operate out there. Gas is more expensive, insurance is more expensive, maintenance is more expensive. A big part of what DrDish does is we pay local fishermen here in Montauk more for their fish. Everyone's bought in to make sure that we can sustain our fishery, to give a sense of hope to an area that's otherwise gone overlooked for too long.
The catch, because fishers are the ones to dictate what they deliver, restaurants only get a few days' notice to craft a menu.
These literally came in yesterday.
That challenge and thrill is why Chef Ned Baldwin signed on his Manhattan eatery, Houseman.
Why was it important for you to seek seasonal local food?
There's a real closeness between the ingredient and what I do with it. That matters a lot.
And what have diners told you about the seafood that they're having?
They know about DrDish. We talk about it. They want to know what the fish is this week. They want to know what I'm going to do with it. And they feel my excitement.
Today's special,
I like that sizzle.
Yeah.
fresh tilefish from a DrDish delivery that morning.
So what we have are fava beans and peas, and then roasted maitake mushrooms, butterball potatoes, and the roasted tilefish.
So you put all this together after finding out what's going to be coming your way?
Yeah.
That looks beautiful. Can I eat it now?
Yes, please.
So I'm the final stop on the DrDish.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
That's really good.
Right.
You can really taste how fresh it is.
With a fresh spin on sustainable fishing, Boyle hopes to expand DrDish across the country and get others hooked on the seed-to-table movement.
What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of being able to support, fishermen. Again, fishermen, they're the underdogs right now. To have the opportunity to promote their products in a local market, means everything to us. And, acknowledging that they're the heroes that they are to do this.
We continue examining America's commercial fishing habits. Alaskan officials canceled snow crab season from 2022 to 2024 after noticing a mysterious and sudden population drop among the species. Jonathan Vigliotti explains how the solution could help other endangered aquatic species rebound.
In some parts of the Alaskan wilderness, the seafood is so abundant you can grab it with your claws.
Clear!
But for commercial fishermen like Gabriel Prout, based on Kodiak Island, the water's looking murky these days.
This is the wheelhouse. So a lot goes on up here. You have fights, you have arguments, you have prayers.
Those prayers are for a rebound of Alaska's snow crab population.
Where have the snow crab gone?
When we first met Prout in 2022, the Alaskan Department of Fish and Game had just imposed an indefinite pause on the snow crab season. 10 billion snow crabs, 90% of the species, had mysteriously vanished.
Here we are 2 years later, a lot of uncertainty. How has it been?
It's been extremely difficult. There's not a lot you can do. These boats are specifically designed to go out and catch crab. So we're over $4 million in debt.
4 million?
Correct. On a good day, you'd have at least 200 crab in here.
Biologists blame the rapid decline of snow crab on a 2018 climate-fueled heat wave.
This is actually kind of a small one.
Now, 6 years on, Ben Daly with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game is developing tracking devices to monitor snow crab and identify healthy populations for sustainable harvesting.
It helps us understand their movement patterns in response to environmental change.
Climate change isn't going away anytime soon. How does a population that depends on colder water then come back from that when the water will likely continue to warm?
The warming event during 2018 and 2019 was kind of thought of as a lightning strike, and the concern moving forward is that the predictions are suggesting higher frequency of lightning strikes in the future.
Other Alaskan species have also been impacted, including Pacific cod, king salmon, and pollock. According to NOAA, between 2022 and 2023, Alaska's seafood industry suffered a nearly $2 billion loss. That industry extends to fish markets and dinner tables thousands of miles from here. Prices of Alaskan seafood in some places have shot up nearly 60% in just a few years.
The volume is definitely lower than it once was, and that is affecting availability, obviously, and that affecting sales.
Kenny Belov owns a seafood company and restaurant in the Bay Area.
What the customer has to be aware of, more of what you will be eating will be imported. More of what you will be eating will be less regulated. More of what you will be eating will be caught with destructive fishing gear.
Back in Kodiak, commercial pots have returned to the water this season after officials lifted that 2-year ban. The moratorium helped populations, but the quota will only be about a tenth of what it was 3 seasons ago.
Has there been any discussion about Plan B?
It's hard to even consider a Plan B when fishing is in my blood. I'm a third-generation fisherman.
For now, it's a modest lifeline for fishermen who find themselves drifting deeper into the unknown.
Ahead, a look at one nonprofit's mission to reduce waste in the fashion industry. That story is next. We conclude our show in the world of fashion. Deadstocking refers to an unwanted surplus of unfinished goods, raw materials, and inventory that's unlikely to sell. But one nonprofit is working to eliminate textile waste by recycling these discarded materials. Elaine Quijano heads to Manhattan's garment district to see how fabrics that don't make the final cut are finding a second life.
We're on 7th Avenue in Midtown, Manhattan's garment district.
Initially, this was the epicenter for a lot of fabric.
Courier Lawrence Murphy's route includes pickups at some of the most esteemed fashion houses in the world.
One location had garments for over 40 years.
Today, we're stopping by Carolina Herrera's workshop. Inside, fabric is cut into patterns, sewed, and carefully pinned into place in preparation for their New York Fashion Week Spring 2025 runway show.
But we're not just here for the latest collection, we're here for the scraps.
The fabric that doesn't make the final cut here gets placed inside these reusable bags and delivered to a warehouse space inside the Brooklyn Army Terminal.
Good. All right.
Ultimately making their way to the nonprofit FabScrap.
FabScrap's mission is to eliminate textile waste from the pre-consumer waste stream, which means the textile waste that businesses are creating.
Jessica Schreiber co-founded the nonprofit in 2016 along with Camille Tagle. Tagle used to work as a fashion designer. She left looking for a solution to the amount of waste created during the design process. Schreiber started as an intern at New York City's Department of Sanitation.
So this is our public warehouse.
Eventually, as head of the clothing recycling program, she noticed a need when it came to recycling textiles from businesses.
Is there not a mechanism officially in place or infrastructure in place to recycle these unused materials?
I was surprised too when I started to look into this problem. There hasn't really been a good collection or recycling infrastructure in place for all of these companies until we started.
They're tackling an issue known as deadstock. The term has yet to be officially defined, but is understood as inventory that's unlikely to sell. Deadstock can also be unfinished goods and even raw materials.
About 12% of all of the fabric created worldwide gets wasted in the design process. It's over 2 billion pounds a year that is wasted before clothing's even made, before clothing even hits stores and our closets.
Each year, FabScrap collects hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadstock throughout New York City, from brands such as Coach, Marc Jacobs, and J. Crew. Volunteers hand-sort the ever-growing mounds of fabric swatches, zippers, buttons, and more. Some of that is donated to local nonprofits, while other material is shredded.
It becomes insulation, carpet padding, mattress stuffing. It's used quite a bit in the automotive industry to line the inside of cars.
While other material goes to FabScrap's in-house store, where individuals can buy it at a steep discount.
We are very, very close to hitting our 2 millionth pound saved from landfill, but it's really a drop in the bucket of the global textile waste problem, even the global pre-consumer textile waste problem.
A problem that is indeed royally outsized.
So you are Queen of Raw?
I am indeed the Queen of Raw.
Stephanie Benedetto is a lawyer turned deadstock data cruncher. Her textile career began at New York City's Fashion Institute of Technology.
Stephanie, you used to sell small batches of deadstock here?
We did. That was the original inspiration for Queen of Raw, giving everyone access to these materials.
Her company, Queen of Raw, tracks deadstock all over the world and finds buyers for it.
Why do you think this wasn't tackled before?
Because this was not the
focus of the business. Dealing with the excess, the unused, everything up and down the supply chain that didn't get to that end consumer, not their business, not their focus, someone else's problem. Until now. Now it's become everyone's problem.
Out of the estimated 150 billion garments produced per year, up to 30% are never sold or worn, mostly ending up in landfills or incinerated.
When we first started looking at this issue of Deadstock, and it looked like around $120 billion a year, and then because of a number of factors like the pandemic, and also because of the rise of social media and everyone wanting instant fashion, that number has risen, and now at $1.77 trillion.
That trillion-dollar price tag is not only a financial problem, but an environmental one as well. Fashion production makes up around 10% of the world's carbon emissions and uses 26.4 trillion gallons of water every year. For its part, fab scrap continues to make its own inroads in the fashion world. They've grown to work with over 800 companies, making a change one scrap at a time.
Are consumers, you think, starting to become more aware of issues like Deadstock?
I think there's a growing awareness. Obviously, I'm in a very niche audience here where we speak to a ton of fashion students, and fashion students are very aware, and that's exciting because they are going to be the next generation of designer who can choose how the industry looks in the future.
But for fashion houses like Carolina Herrera, the future is now.
I play a big role in it, and I feel partially responsible.
Wes Gordon is their creative director. Under his leadership, the brand has sent more than 11,000 pounds of Deadstock to fab scrap. As his latest collection debuted, Gordon told us he's focused not just on trends, but on what his industry is leaving behind.
Fashion is a big culprit in waste and pollution, and everything we can do to be better, we need to do. It's not a would be nice, it's not a should do, we have to do it.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news, stream us right here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.